Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Amateur's Mind and welcome back to Isolated Pawns. Not long ago I made a video about isolated pawn structures and their strategies, and in fact it was one of my most successful recent videos. I was very impressed with both its reception and the number of views it got, and clearly there is more need to talk about isolated pawns. This time it's going to be IQP, where the Q stands for the queen, so it's going to be an isolated queen pawn, meaning the D pawn. And the reason why I'm saying there is clearly a need for it, because I just went through one of my students' games, and I found a game that really needs some love. And usually this is how I find material for my Amateur's Mind videos, through my students' games. But obviously because of my students very rarely play against other students of mine or against themselves, it's very clear that the whole community in general on that level potentially might want to look into this whole topic a little bit deeper. And so here we go. IQP is on the menu today. The Caro Campanov is a very common way to get to an IQP, but a lot of C3 Sicilians, a lot of Nimzo Indians, in fact with both colors. Reason why Nimzo is so highly recommended, because of the great variety of pawn structures emerging from it. So yeah, there are many openings that can lead to this particular structure. Here we go. And even before the IQP could occur, we are already making a mistake. And I need to elaborate on this one, because this is one that is very often committed, this mistake, I would say, on lead chess between 1500 to all the way to 2000. Beyond that, less so. Quite interestingly, this game is 2150, both white and black. So this is a somewhat uncharacteristic mistake. Mistake is a harsh word for this. It's a developing move. It puts the bishop on a sensible looking square, but it betrays a little bit of a lack of understanding of the structure that is about to emerge. And in order to clearly understand the problem with this move, I need to fast forward the game a little bit, about here-ish. So now is a golden opportunity for black to enter the IQP by taking on c4. And apart from the fact that now there was a free pawn to be grabbed here, more on that later, obviously black's number one strategy, which everyone knows inside out and yet we so often see it not happening, is blockading the isolated pawn, meaning putting a piece in front of it. Now, student here already knew that this was going to be an IQP after the eventual demise, or rather disappearance, of these pawns, in which case a knight is going to come to d5. Well, guess the worst square for this bishop if we know knight d5 is coming. Yep, that's gonna be f4. Because we just walked into a big fat tempo. And as a matter of fact, and I don't really like to say this on the one hand, but I really do on the other, bishop f4 does nothing at all other than ticking the box of development. Because we don't want to do anything on this diagonal and or on these squares. We do want to use e5 actually for the knight, which is not a good reason why bishop is misplaced here, but none of these squares are realistic attacking potentials. The bishop, more often than not in IQPs, either is actually severely delayed in development at the expense of developing the king side, yep, or goes to g5 trying to put pressure on this knight, which is an important defender of the king side and also the square in front of the IQP. So the correct theoretical move here is actually takes. Quite ironically, releasing tension here is correct. And for example, after knight takes d5, which is the most common response, both bishop d3 and bishop c4 are theoretical moves. And just to give you an idea about how long the development of this bishop should be delayed, the main line of bishop c4 goes like this: castles, castles, knight c6, rook e1, still not moving the bishop, knight takes, pawn takes, b6, bishop d3, still not moving the bishop on c1, simply because it doesn't have a good square to go to. Luckily, a well-known YouTuber and somewhat known chess coach may be working on a course for Chessable now that is about development. So hopefully that is going to score goals for you to know how to do this correctly. So again, look at this. I'm playing lots of developing and useful moves. And like, this is a very important thing to note, that this is a developing move. It retreats the bishop from a useless diagonal. There is no need anymore to contest the d5 square because the pawn structure has changed and I don't want to play d5. And we reroute the bishop to the diagonal where I can really do a lot of damage. If you are an avid chess coach Andras fan, you would know that I made a video about this structure in which I analyzed the very famous Razuvayev-Faragou game, which went bishop b7 and h4, still not developing the bishop. And after one potential line is bishop takes, knight takes, queen takes, rook e3, still not developing the bishop. And after g6, rook g3, the bishop is finally ready to enter the fray with decisive power. Excuse my drinking, but my throat is a bit sore. Or if we follow the Faragou game that I believe went with knight a5 here, may or may not, and then knight g5. Bishop is still not developing because we still don't know where it should go. And after g6 we still don't develop it because we still don't know where the best square is and we have better things to do to play for h5. So it needs to be understood that development is not just moving pieces randomly, but to find the right time and the right square. This is textbook wrong square, wrong time. Okay, let's move on. Castles, queen c2. Again, wrong piece, wrong time. It's quite ironic, but a lot of people don't like to play bishop d3 because then they go like, I lost the tempo. Not really. Because losing a tempo is when, whilst I am doing two moves with the bishop, the opponent is doing something that essentially gives them an extra tempo, an extra move, something productive is happening. Okay, so to model that with a better example, if I play in this position, I don't know, like bishop e5 to do a complete lemon, and then after knight c6 I come back, then I did lose a tempo, in fact two, because I went in, they played a move that they wanted to play, and now they get to play another. Now they are not exactly desperate to take that, they would like, that is not a huge gain. They want to play knight c6, they want to play b6 bishop here. So to force this is not a biggie. We didn't really lose anything because we played a developing bishop move, they took a pawn, which hasn't really improved anything on black side, and then I took it back. So I am still on the side where I played the bishop move, and black didn't really do much in the interim. I don't know if I'm giving a good enough or clear enough example here or not, but I hope that I am, in that this is not really a big loss of a tempo, if at all. And as such, bishop d3 was desired here. Because alternatively, if I take first, then knight d5 is a tempo for black because now it hits here. So that was definitely an unwanted scenario. And besides, it's a futile effort to keep on waiting for them to take they want. Because they know that that's exactly what I'm waiting for. And also with the queen on c2, it doesn't fit into the structure at all. It doesn't fit in because usually this queen either goes here or here. Hardly ever here. Reasons on that in a bit. So we go queen c2, knight c6. It's an okay move. Takes, quite ironically, would have been already pretty good because this is a tempo. Okay, we play a move, we are attacking something, they can't do what they want to do. They have to defend the pawn, which is already a very good way to prove that this, in fact, was a bad move. Opponent went knight c6 first, it's fine, although here we could have changed the structure and instead of taking place c5. And this way we actually could have benefited from this slight inaccuracy, because the one and only thing this queen c2 does is that it prevents the knight from coming into e4, which is one of the most common responses against an early c5. So here white could have and should have changed the structure to his benefit, and after b6 there is this very common trick that we earn a tempo on that knight, or even we go b4. And at points, although again, Queen on c2 makes it a bit iffy, but sometimes we can take like this. Maybe it's better if we jump in first, force the bishop. Don't know, let's go just rook c8 and then b4. But now I'm a bit reluctant to believe that this could work. Oh, maybe. Yeah, this is very iffy. But I quite like white's position even after this take. If I went like this, d4, yeah, knight c6, rook c6, this is looking a little bit shaky. This pawn is not blockaded. So I'm a bit scared. Okay, anyway. We didn't do that. We played a3, which, by the way, does fit in most IQP structures, because one of the most common maneuvers that black does after takes is to put a knight here and then jump back to blockade the IQP. So although the computer gives it a big fat question mark, it's not because the move itself is bad per se, it's because it missed an opportunity to play a better structure. Okay, b6, very logical move again into the structure. Having said that, d takes c4 just picks up a free pawn. Absolutely surreal blunder on both sides in a 30-20 game. It's really unexplainable to me how two 2150 players don't notice that after takes, it's just, yeah, gone. Gone, ski brother, because after takes I just pick up a free pawn. Anyway, b6, rook d1. Note the extreme delay on the very bishop that should have been the first piece to develop as soon as we got this structure. Because the other line, by the way, after knight d5 is not bishop c4 but bishop d3, where again after castles, knight e4, there are a variety of lines here. Rook e1 is one, bishop e4 is another. But you can see again that how logically white is developing and still delaying the development of this, because again, no good squares. Queen e2 is another move here with the idea of queen e4, trying to soften up the king side so that the bishop can get out. Okay, moving on. Now we are finally arriving at the dreaded or the so badly wanted IQP. Okay, so now both players should be in a very, very much comfort zone, if you will, because this is a structure that is discussed to death, has been on YouTube channels, books, courses, you name it. Like, you really have to want to avoid not knowing what to do in an IQP in today's world. Let's see how the principles and the ideas that these players are supposedly having and knowing, how much do they come into play. Rook c8, very logical move, creates a lot of dirties down the c file. Awesome. Queen d3. I really like this move because student now shows signs of remembering the structure that he's meant to go for, in which we are castled here, the rooks are here and here, and we are doing this in order to start attacking the king. So I'm quite delighted with seeing queen d3. It also shows that he is aware that c4 is a soft spot potentially. Now what should black do again in IQP? Number 1, blockade pawn. Number 2, trade pieces. So now I'm going to do a board flipperoo. What was it again? Blockade the pawn, trade pieces. Okay, so I go knight a5. I'm attacking the bishop with a tempo, opening up another piece towards the vitally important d5 square, the one in front of the isolated pawn. And when the bishop retreats, blockade the square in front of the IQP. Ta-da! This is a very, very powerful way to show that you understand what you're meant to do. Not that you know, because I'm pretty sure he knew it, but he understood it. They're two totally different things. A lot of people know a lot of things that they are meant to do in chess and they don't do it. But if you understood what it meant to put a piece here and to aim for trades, you would have played knight a5 and you would have played knight d5. No worries. And now the bishop, well, bishop b1 I guess is best. But if the bishop goes anywhere, we can start trading. And again, this is a testament to how poorly this bishop is placed. This move should never, ever come with a tempo on anything. And now it did. That being said, after bishop b1, there is a potential that we can earn that tempo back, because after g6, the bishop can come down here. Then again, after rook e8, this is a totally normal structure. And note that I can trade a piece. I can then come in and blockade the white squares. So everything is looking a-okay for black. What do we do? Bishop d6. Holy smokes. So although this move does tick the box of attempting trading pieces, but this is a pathetic attempt, because both black and white will know here that white is not going to trade. For sure they are not going to trade. So if your best method to offer trades is to do it so that we actually violate all other principles, because now we lose control of d5, and we expose ourselves to a pin, and we know that this trade is not going to take place, what's the point of offering it? It's a bit like me playing knight a5 in the hope that they will blunder the bishop. That's not going to happen. Luckily, I didn't play it for that reason. But this is just hope chess. And at the same time, it's destroying everything that we know about IQP, which is to control the square in front of the pawn and attempt to put pieces in front of it. After just a pair of moves, bishop d6, bishop g5, this position has gone so much in white's way, it's not even funny. If I was black, I would very seriously consider here bishop e7. I'm kidding you not. Which means that I lost an entire move and now it's white to move, and I would be still happier to play this than probably most moves, because the bishop is so atrociously placed on d6. Student correctly played bishop g5, by the way. Flippery back. Opponent plays h6. This is a move you have to be very careful with in IQPs where white has this attack. Because if this attack hits, and actually the mate threat is real, and it's an important and big if, then you will have to play g6 as per game when this pawn structure is extremely loose and very exposed to attacks. And there is no real benefit really, because the bishop didn't want to go back on this diagonal much anyway. Alright, bishop e7 went back. At least black recognized the humongous mistake they have made. Bishop a2. Now stuff is getting real here, okay? Admittedly, if we are black, now we have to cut corners. Okay, so now there are far fewer very, very good moves available for black, but one way to try to sometimes utilize the bishop being absent from this diagonal, which is, by the way, why very often it stands best on c1, this bishop that is, especially after h6, and especially if the rook has gone that way, because now I have knight h5, trades. And unlike the bishop d6 attempt, this is 100% guaranteed trade. Whether they come here or drop back, I have a choice to take a piece. If they take on e7, I must. If they go to g3, I can. No brainer, right? And if they take on e7, then I take back with the knight, again showcasing my understanding that I need to blockade the isolated pawn, which, by the way, again, ironically, is going to allow me to trade even more. Knight also has a beautiful square to come in, attacking the queen, attacking g2. Likely continuation, bishop g2, maybe knight f6. I would rather go knight... I don't know, g6 or knight f6. I would be happy with either. And after castles, knight d5. Trade, blockade d5. See how easy it is to be in the right mindset and still play absolute lemons, and how difficult it can be to actually execute the right moves even when you know what to do. And this is why there is a large and huge difference between knowing and understanding. I know I'm meant to trade. This is not going to do it. Okay, moving on. Knight b8, one of the greatest shockers of the game. Like, the ultimate never go back applies here 5 times over. But the problem is that he's actually rerouting the knight to a reverse square, because from d7, I have absolutely nothing that I can go to or access. The only reason why this could be good is because now the bishop's diagonal is open. And in some structures, it's a very good layout. If I'm not 70 tempo behind, like I'm now, because I went there then back then here. And I did this bishop shebang as well. So white is way ahead compared to where he should be. Also note that this would be far better to have this knight here if we went for the a6, b5 structure, because then I could go b6, d5. Again, the square in front of the pawn. The isolated pawn. Anyway, so the opponent goes knight b8, bishop b1, threat takes, rook e8. What does club player do here? Panic. Mate, oh my god, what do I do? And from here on, aggressive, proactive, and just in general dynamic ideas are out in the window. And all is left is rigid defense. Oh my god, bishop f6 and mate. And so it's so easy to miss a move like this, which is a game changer. Absolute game changer. Because now obviously the queen is hanging, and although the queen can retain the mate threat, but now when I deal with the mate threat, white can't castle. And dealing with the mate threat is not to walk into suicide, but to simply go like, yeah, I'm good. Take me, I will take you back. No worries. And I would prefer to be black. Because now white is struggling with castling. Okay. Bishop b1. So bishop a6 was badly missed. And again, this is another testament to why the king side needs to develop first, by the way. We played g6. That was an absolute shocker. And on that note, although I don't think it does work here, at one point I did look at this. I want to make sure that we understand that quite often the best response to something like this is actually a move like this. We go like, mate threat? Where? Where is the mate threat? Take, check, king here. Show me the mate. If check, king here. And the queen is getting really, really much in trouble. So just because we allow this check, it doesn't mean that we're getting mated. Note how white had to give up the dark squared bishop. And so controlling dark squares is now quite a nuisance for white. I'm not saying that this is definitely safe, but it's definitely on the cards in similar positions. Famous game Ribley-Smyslov comes to mind, where Smyslov outplayed Ribley in a similar scenario where Ribley thought that this check couldn't be allowed, and just Smyslov went like, yep, knock yourself out. It was a very painful defeat for the Hungarian GM in the candidates, by the way. Right, so g6. Now the weakening move has come. And from here on, now white is totally in the driving seat, and the rest of the game is just an absolute knockout. Knight e5, introducing the threat of knight takes g6. And again, a typical reaction, oh my god, or not even that, but aggression, counter-punching, and dynamic thinking about how do I deal with this tends to just not be present, even on 2100, and he walks like lamb to the slaughter into mate. Very sad to see. Very sad. Actually, after bishop a6, queen g3, queen e8, again, an ugly move, but it does cover g6. It's still anybody's game, because now we have been cut off from castling again. Quite amazing stuff. Instead, he played knight d7, and after knight g6, there is very little to report on, because, yeah, what's going to happen here? Take, king away, check, and the king is extremely exposed, and student correctly does a rook lift that essentially seals the deal because of the check and mate to follow. Beautiful attack, by the way. Very basic stuff, but nonetheless, you need to be aggro and play like this. Opponents played bishop d6, queen check. Very common procedure to force the king back before we deliver the deadly blow with rook h3. And now bishop f6 mate is not stoppable. For the sake of accuracy, I played out because it did happen. And for this reason, I could have put it in my student's rock, but because of what happened earlier, not quite. Not quite. and mate. For the record, I would like to mention it because it's a beautiful motif that even if h3 had been covered in this position, white would have had the equally stunning rook g3 motif with the idea that if bishop takes, pawn takes, thus opening up the h file for the bishop f6 mate delivered by the other rook now, the double check that is. So let's have a very quick look again at what went wrong for both sides in this IQP. So white forgot opening theory and forgot to take. Okay, it does look like we are releasing tension, but the reality is that ED has a fairly poor reputation because of this queen b3 line that attacks a lot of stuff, and black's development is very far from ideal. Two very passive bishops, and so knight d5 is forced, whereupon again bishop d3 and bishop c4 would land us in the IQP. Bishop f4, very inaccurate. Castles, queen c2, again inaccurate. Bishop d3 needed to be played. Knight c6, cool. A3, blunder. D takes c4 wins the game for black. Black plays b6, blunder. D takes c4 would have won. Rook d1, bishop b7, fine, fine, fine. Rook c8, now is interesting to see how we are going into the right structure. Queen d3, bishop d6, shocker. Knight a5, followed by knight d5 was the correct procedure. Instead we went bishop d6, bishop there, h6, and then back. Black is still doing okay, but now he needed to be very cautious in terms of how to progress. Knight b8 was played. As per indicated before, not exactly the best. Bishop b1, g6, another very, very weak move. And again, I would really love to emphasize this knight h5 move here. Such an awesome demonstration of understanding what's going on. Let's trade. Let's get into d5. Let's get into that endgame where the d4 pawn is weak. Okay, knight b8, bishop b1, and from here on, it's carnage. Absolute carnage. And now, because I just mentioned this Ribley game, I didn't intend to include it, but now I am keen to have a very brief look because I actually forgot how it went. Okay. Maybe I'm not going to be able to do this as quickly as I would have liked it to. Okay. We'll call on chess base. Sorry about this. Ribley Smyslov. And I think Smyslov won that game. I don't know why Chess Games doesn't give it to me. Anyhow, let's go back to the game. I wish I knew which game it was. Oops, did I close the window? Oopsie, oopsie. No, here we go. Okay. So whilst ChessBase is looking for it, I'm going to have this up. Yeah, so the natural course of action is take, bishop d3, castles. And just to model you one setup, knight c6, rook e1. And Karpov, for example, did play knight f6 here, which is a bit of a weird move, really, against Smyslov himself, which is a video that I also made and analyzed on this channel. And after a3, b6, bishop c2, bishop b7, I think that was the moment when he walked into some d5 stuff. But somehow the queen was already on d3 when d5 came. And he fell into this very, very famous trick of bishop g5, threatening take and mate. He played g6 and then knight, rook takes e7. It's game over because if queen takes, then knight takes. If knight takes, we pick off the bishop. And again, note here that black, although is on paper playing good moves, but he has neglected the d5 square. So better move here would have been knight a5, again opening up the bishop, opening up the knight towards the d5 square. Okay, I have found Ribley Smyslov. Just give me a second because I've found actually 75 million games. And it actually turned out to be a draw, but Ribley needed to win that game in order to progress on. Oh, hang on. That's not it. That's not it. Okay, Ribley Smyslov may not happen today, folks. Wow. Extreme stalling whilst I'm trying to find this. So I very highly recommend you, by the way, to play these structures because they do an awful lot of good for you. Was it Smyslov Ribley? Because I only searched for games with these colors. I usually don't forget these things, but now it looks like my memory has betrayed me. Oh, bugger, that was close. No. Okay, let me quickly check. If it was the other color set up. But if not, I'm going to give myself an opportunity to cut this video off here. So, oh wow, now I found fewer games. How is that? Okay, no, I can't find it now. I really do regret that. But yeah, hopefully this was a bit of a useful talk for you about how to play this structure. What is it that both sides are trying to aim for? And actually now I would like to show you something else. Not only do I want to model how else you can get the very same structure, but this is actually a textbook case of a starting point of an IQP. So here, white plays bishop e3, which is not a good move in terms of the IQP, but it's a good move in this particular position because it forces black to take. Because now if they don't, then I take here, and when the queen trade takes place, the bishop is covering the pawn. And so when they take, we do get the IQP, and although the bishop is a tad weird here, it's nowhere near as bad as it would be on f4. And so now we are entering one of the biggest main lines of the c3 Sicilian, and this actually is a textbook case of what's going on with either color. And actually this position has been known as a little bit unpleasant for black, and the reason for that is because white has managed to build up the perfect layout. Note that the rook is never on the c file, by the way, because we don't want to trade, and that on the open file would just initiate trades. The rooks need to be here and here so that when we fight and strike with d5, then the two rooks will become very powerful there. Anyway, so the reason why this structure is a little bit better for white is because black failed to trade pieces efficiently enough, in fact at all. And so now white is usually continuing his attack undisturbed with bishop g5, queen d3, creating mate attack on the king. There are quite a few famous games that followed this path. Pavasovic, the Croatian grandmaster, played a few breathtakingly beautiful attacks. I very highly recommend you to check those games out too. Right after I stop recording this, I will try to find the Ribley game and the Pavasovic game, and I will put them in the description below for your education and entertainment as well. So I hope that this was somewhat useful for you guys, and I will be back with more soon. Bye.